Okay, Bishop, you are alive.
Well, good evening, my friend, and welcome again to the Crown Kingdom Cultural Center Masterclass. Tonight we have a very interesting group or collection of ministry gifts. We are honored tonight to have three very special ministry gifts to share this unique platform with us in order to discuss what many are experiencing, as we said on our last occasion, throughout this pandemic or this season of COVID-19. Now, although this is a very sensitive subject, it is a necessary topic. And so
Yes.
tonight we're honored to have ministers Sandra Simmons, Corine Simpkins, and um, James. Uh,
Amen.
excuse me.
Amen.
We've got Simmons, Simpkins, and James with us tonight. And these three anointed women are very sensitive to the life after grief and loss because they've had personal experiences. They share this sentiment with many who have experienced it that are near them. Tonight, I'm going to let them testify, talk to you some from their own perspective of pain. And we're going to spend the majority of our time tonight talking about how to adjust and the reason why it is so important that after we grow to the acknowledgement of what has occurred in our lives, that we continue to make adjustments that will assist us in living a wholesome life. Now, keep this in mind. Tonight, our topic is life after grief, life after loss. And the reason why that is the actual theme for this ministry is because within itself, you can find an anointing for relief because all of us are required to live after. Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Wisdom says, guard your heart diligently, for out of it flows the issues of life. David said to his son Solomon, that the heart be without knowledge is not good. And so it's very important tonight that we learn how to live under the umbrella of the knowledge of God because it gives us the power to overcome, the power to endure, the power to make adjustments that will assist us in living a life of peace and abundance in spite of what difficulties may occur in our lives. The other thing I want to say just before I turn these women loose on the platform tonight is that David said in Psalms 34 that many are the afflictions of the righteous, but God shall deliver us out of them all. Notice the promise there is that even though we, the righteous who have aligned our lives with God and godliness, will experience multiple forms of afflictions and grief and pain, even loss. He said, though they be multiple, though they be many, he said, God shall deliver us. That is the promise. He shall deliver us out of them all. Now, when Paul dealt with this, he was looking at it from the perspective of retrospect. He was looking behind. David was looking before him. David was looking towards Matthew 11:28, wherein Jesus said, come unto me, all you who labor and are still heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He said, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm meek and I'm lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your soul, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Well, that was David the psalmist looking ahead, but now Paul looks back retrospectively and says, our light afflictions, which are but for a moment, notice what he says. And I know this is our cue tonight because I know it doesn't seem like it, ladies. He said, our light afflictions, which are but for a moment, are working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. But notice he gives us the method for how to contend with it. He said, while we look not at the things which are seen, but we look at the things that God says about it. For the things that are seen are temporal, transient, and subject to change. But the things which are not seen, he said, they are eternal. which in essence means that God has given us a remedy for how to deal with this contentious, seeming enemy called death, loss, grief. It catches us so off guard. It requires of us such an emotional shift. It does us to some degree such an injustice because of the immediate trauma that is introduced initially upon its arrival. And regardless to how much we exercise physically and in many other ways, for some reason, something about the emotions and the psychology still isn't ready for it when it occurs. And so tonight, ladies, each of you have your own perspective on this issue. And I thank God for you. Let me say to each of you, I am so honored to have you with us tonight. And indeed, Rosa, Sandra, Corine, I know how cumbersome and how difficult sometimes in its shiftiness grief can be. And so I want you to know tonight that my prayers are always for those who are grieving and hurting. That's one prayer that Bishop Bush never ceased to pray, because I want God to unveil his loving and graceful strength in your life. The Bible says in our weakness, his strength is made perfect. And so tonight, either of you who would like to start, please just take the platform and share with us, and then we'll move it forward.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead on and start. I took on this weekend, well, not weekend yet, but I experienced a journey for the first time that since I've been going through different exchanges with the losses in my life, I revisit a place that was hard for me to visit because I had in Florida as we speaking, and that area for me was very tender because of so much lost of family members and close family members, and on that, dealing with traveling the first time at a distance as a widow by myself and not having that person there, to drive. And so today it was a little challenging, but as I start, my emotions start swaying from one exchange to the next. 1 minute it felt kind of exciting to take the journey. Then the next minute, the memories start hitting me. And then after I exchanged through that, I made a conscious decision, even though the memories was coming, I was not gonna allow it to damper my day. So as I progressed throughout the day, it was a great experience for me. And it was like I stepped outside of that box that I have been, sheltering myself in.
So let me ask you a question there. This is very good, Sandra. You're telling me that one of the things that you encountered was the type of grief that was retrospective. It was, you revisited places in your emotions and in your psychology that were kind of settled for the moment until you started this journey.
Right.
And in order to really change that dynamic of suffering so it wasn't painful, you had to do something intentional.
Right.
So you made an intentional shift so that you could still enjoy your day. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's go back there for a moment. And ladies, don't you feel free at any time, because if you would like to join in on this, let's talk a little bit about the intentional shift and why it is so necessary. Because if you don't make an intentional shift, it sounds like then your mind was prepared, watch this, to literally take your day from you. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's good that she and everybody deals with grief of course, differently. And I think it's great that she did take that shift and makes her, feel a lot better, or being able to continue on in her journey. But well, just a little bit of my background, where I lost my son March of 2015 with my three of my grandchildren, and his fiance all transitioned on the same day. So with me, I'm just like total the opposite. For me, I push all of it under the rug, and so that I can, my way of call myself functioning. I can't say that I'm really functioning at my highest level, but I don't want the memories. I don't want to look at pictures. I don't want to listen to the song. I don't want to do any of that, visit the places, anything that I share it with my son. Sometimes I may take a look at a picture or two, but as far as a lot of going to Chicago, don't want to do that because that's where he was last stationed at in Chicago. Or some of the things that a lot of the things that we talked about, I don't want to visit any of it. I just want to pack it, suppress it, so I can live and move on. And that's my way of dealing with it, which I'm sure there are better ways. And I have gone to counseling. They've talked to me about it, some different ways to deal with it.
Yes.
But I don't want to do that because then I would remember that it happened. And I'm trying my best to remember that it did not happen.
So usually what we do as counselors is we try to challenge the side of you that you're not accustomed to manifesting. And that's one of the dark places that a lot of people in this society don't understand about their own psychology, and why, how the Bible says they are fearfully and wonderfully made, Corine.
Yes.
What happens is when you were designed, and I'm going to give this back to you. I think Rosa wants to say something and Sandra probably wasn't finished. When you were designed, ladies, God saw the future you. He saw you now. He saw where you are. He saw what you would go through. He knows exactly what you would endure. He's omniscient, all-knowing. He's so sovereign that he's too wise to make a mistake, we say. So he does not allow anything to happen to us that is above our ability to stand up under it and still overcome. The reason I said that is because the counselor usually asks you to do something that begs for an exposure to, again, the side of you that you are not accustomed to manifesting. It's called potential. Even though it's grace potential. In other words, you remember, I think on Tuesday night, I talked about how Paul said, 3 times I sought the Lord regarding this thorn in my flesh. And he said unto me, instead of moving it, he said, my grace is sufficient for you. Well, he was reminding him of how he designed him. And so God has peeked into your future, saw some of the things that would occur, and he saw you victorious on the other side. In many cases, when the counselor is trying to hand you those kind of leverages, they don't seem like they will help you. I know they seem like they'll only make you more worse and make the situation more difficult. But I'm sure that upon obeying the scripture eventually, and it's in your own time. That's why we say everybody grieves differently, right, and everybody has a different period. So there's nothing pressurized about my conversation. The thing I'm just saying to our listening audience as well is that when a counselor tells us or advises us to do that, what we're usually doing is trying to nudge you slowly, tenderly, gingerly into a place of reckoning. And you will sometimes astonish yourself upon arrival, because you wake up and say, wow, did I really deal with that way? Yes, because God has fortified you, else he would not have allowed it to happen to you. You see that? And the joy of it all, ladies, is that one day, regardless to how close they were to us, how endearing they are to us still in memory, and how much they mean ever so much to us, we will see our loved ones again. And there is a joy that is not even to be compared to what we once knew upon arrival. And so that's what we're doing there. But I do understand exactly what you're saying. And again, that gives us great cause for sympathy and understanding how the plight of pain can really be enduring for all of us when we experience such great loss. And then also, you said you lost a son and
Three of my grandchildren.
3 grandchildren and a daughter-in-law,
Yes.
all at the same time.
Yes.
Unfortunate circumstance.
Yes.
And boy, that's a lot to get. I know that is a lot to experience all at once. You're talking about trauma. You're talking about trauma magnified 5 times. And so I, nothing but, just my hats off to you, and my prayers and condolences forever. Just believing that God's going to give you the necessary strength to continue to overcome and abound.
Just listen to you in the very beginning, Bishop. It just made me realize to think about how painful loss really is. Because as you started talking, my mind flashed back to a lot of things I had lost.
Wow.
And not really, that wasn't focusing on those things, but just I thought about my son when I went to the military. I thought about when I talk about real stuff. When my husband, I found my husband first cheating on me, that type of loss. I thought about when I lost the car that I bought for myself. Things kept popping up. I thought about my cousin that committed suicide when I had just talked to him that day. And I looked back and said, I should have known, I should be able to stop him, but I couldn't stop him. And all these things flashed in my mind, and it was like a knot built up in my throat, just thinking about those things. Because no matter how hard we try not to think about them, they always find some way to resurface. And I found myself trying to set goals as to what I want to accomplish first when I started dealing with life that I had lost, grieving that way. When I lost my mother, when I lost my cousin to suicide, and my aunt that died like 7 days before my mother died. All these things came back to me. And I started looking at, what did I do? How did I deal with it? I talked. I didn't keep it in a barrel. I talked about it. I found someone that I trusted, someone I wouldn't go out and tell everybody else what I said, and that would just sit and listen to me. I need her to talk back. I just needed someone I could just pour out to and know they will listen to me and not try to make me feel any less than I was feeling at that time, or any bitter than I felt already, because I was mad at God too. You blame everybody when things happen, and you try to come to a conclusion as to why did it really happen. We know there's a time for everything, a time to cry, a time to be happy. All of that comes to play, but why this, Lord? And you realize through that same time, no matter what you're going through, as you said, he will never allow more to come upon you than you can bear. There's always a way of escape. And so there are a lot of things I had to look at. And even now, when you talk about these things, I have to realize that I had to set some goals. I had to decide what I was going to tackle first in the loss I was going through. What did I want to do mostly in that area of laws? Like the first thing I tackled in my house, my mother passed, was taking on pictures, because she had so many pictures of everybody, my daddy, her, all these pictures she had up. So that was my first goal to tackle, was removing pictures that made me remember too much about her and my dad. And I put them away. And then I found out, no, I need something now to bring back some joy about her. So I started getting the kids together. We started having dinner on the weekend, bring them over to the house to eat dinner together, things that she liked to do. So I had to get rid of one painful thing and bring back something that made me happy. And those goals started taking place. And then I started moving to another area of life. And that was, let me say this though, the first thing I had to learn how to do was allow myself to grieve.
Okay.
And we stopped, we shut that down right away when we first lose something. We We don't want to grieve. We don't want to hurt.
What-
Pain is
well,
real, though.
oh,
It's real. You can't get away
Yes.
from it. You got to hurt in order to get over what you're going through. So I had to allow myself to grieve first. And sometimes I would get upset with people that came by. I mentioned that to y'all before, that I would get upset when they came by. How you doing? What's going on? Leave me alone. But I had to allow myself to grieve by distance myself from them sometime when they came around, especially the family. Mom, you all right? Go away. But y'all know they do you. Your friends come over, you all right? Go away. And God, I was so bad. My daughter, Mom, you just mean. Okay, I'm mean then. I wish they would go away still. But and we experience these things, and nothing's wrong with us. Just that's the way we deal with it. And everybody do it in a different way, and no way is right. And Bishop, you touched on that also, and it's so real to know. My friend Corine, she shut down right now. She don't want to do nothing. I feel you, honey. I feel you. If that's easy for you right now, then do it that way. But gonna come a time when you have to walk through it in order to get to a better place. And we all experience that. Sandra, she's walking through her
That's
path.
so good. That's so good, Rosa. That's good. Let's deal with that right there, because you said there will come a time when you have to walk through it. Now, I would suggest for all of us who are listening, and Corine, when we're dealing with those moments, go ahead and locate your right and your left leg. Walk through. Now, in other words, find those persons that you already know in advance that peradventure something occurs that demands that you move forward. Those two people that you can lean on.
Yes.
And know assuredly that there's a trust factor there.
Yes.
It's like knowing Christ. And that's it. Sometimes we have to pontificate for each other. We have to be Christ. We have to become the incarnate Christ for each other. And so locate us. I mean, I know I'm your pastor and I'm your bishop, and I'm always here, my wife and I, but find those people that you have emotionally and psychologically embraced in a way that they will be there, and that you can count on them in the midst of that exchange to go through it. Now, and we're not going to isolate your situation here. You may want to say something back if you like, because again, that's very painful. It's very traumatic. It's an unusual occurrence, although there are many kinds of occurrences similar throughout all society. In our area, that is a very unusual occurrence. And so,
I'm sorry, I was going to say something unless Sandra wanted to say something first. Before I
You
said,
got it. Go ahead. Mom.
No, well, and what Bishop was saying about find those people is, and I understand that, and I got that, I do, and I do have a couple people that I can, but it's just that I want to say that I don't, and this may be the wrong terminology, but this is how I feel, and this is how it's going to come out. I really don't want to right now, because just like she was talking about the pain, because I don't want to go through the pain of telling somebody and crying and breaking down, going through all that down that road. I guess I'm just not ready to do that yet. So I just, hide it and smile and, keep on going. And I know, and my friend once told me that it's going to come out. When it comes out, it's going to flood and flow. I do get that. I do understand that. But you know what? I kind of think that I'm all right.
you are.
Yeah, I kind of think that I am, even though I've suppressed it and I want to look at music. I want to listen to his songs. I want to do things. But on the other hand, I don't want to go through like Miss Rosa was saying, the pain and the trauma and pain and the remembrance of it.
That's good.
Sandra? It is.
Oh, I was just gonna say some of what Corine was saying, suppressing, don't want to experience the pain. That's where I still have the experiences, but like as I was stating, stepping out this weekend, doing this, it was the same exact thing what Corine was saying, because I didn't want to feel the pain. I knew, and I had pretty much made up my mind when I lost certain loved ones that, oh, I'm not coming back to that place again. I wanted to protect myself. But then I also knew deep down inside, I was going to have to visit that spot. And even like when my family members would say, well, Sandra, when you gonna come visit? It's like, I can't do it right now. And I did not allow anyone to force me to do it when I wasn't ready. I had to do it in my own timing.
Right.
And so, and even doing it in your own timing, it's going to be some challenges, but you just have to navigate through the challenges when it does happen to you.
Yeah, it was like we would give a membership in a club that we didn't ask to join, but we're gonna always be we're gonna always be in that club, because grief does not go away. You when you learn how to deal with it effectively, it's gonna still be there. And I'm thinking as we talk, so there's something of joy that each of our person gave us. There's some joy there. There were some things that we just gravitated to with them that they love to do. We call my mother, the grandkids call her Grandma Babe. Mama loved to cook. So I don't like cooking. So when the kids said, Mom, when you gonna invite us over to eat? I said, I don't know, bring something. We have a potluck. but we still do something. We have a potluck. But we have to find some other way to keep memories alive. Yeah, they're gone, but I have so many great memories. And what was some of those memories? I'm not sure where I would be, because I'm getting older now, and all these things flash back in my mind where she said, just wait a while, child, you'll see. And when I used to tell her, Mom, I'm getting old. She said, you're not old, you can't cross your legs. And so I remember these little things.
Do that again now. She said what?
You're not old, you can't cross your legs. So a lot of the things she would say, those things come back to me, and like just they make me laugh, and they're good memories. It helps me heal, and we have to find a way to bring healing to ourselves, because it's not going to come on its own.
Wow.
And I'm still healing. Our lives still can be meaningful, and we can still express a lot of joy and just thoughts of them. Find ways to honor them. Find things about them that stood out. You know, some of the things they like doing and things that made them who they are or who they were. And when we look at those things, we can look at grief in a different way, because no matter how much we try to suppress it in us, they're still alive. And they always will be, because they're part of us. And you can't change that. You can't forget that. So I find myself thinking about all the good things that we did together, all the laughter we had together. I still don't like the pictures that much, because that brings a little bit too much. But all the other good things, like the way she liked to cook, I try to remember how she used to make macaroni and cheese. Remember how she made homemade biscuits, and I tried to regroup and try to do it myself. Things like that have good memories to them, and it just make me smile when I think about it. And there's some of that in each of us, because my mom not going anywhere. She's not with me physically, but she has such a big part of me and my family that I can't just suppress it and not feel the pain sometimes. Because when you're going through the laughter and the happiness, there was why a little bit of pain creeps back in, and you got to still deal with that too. But all of it is just dealing with what we got to deal with.
So is it, Rosa, so then is it possible, ladies, that sometimes times what we've called suppress. Really, we can find there's some other action verbs or coping mechanisms that can really be used. I don't know if suppression is the real word. Sometimes we manipulate it. In other words, we manage it. Sometimes we manipulate it. Sometimes we suffocate it. Sometimes
Yeah.
some of these are just life's tools, the things you have to use. So you may use one more than you do others, but now the mind has a way of bringing things back to us, regardless of whether we desire them to face them or not, right?
Right.
And so, you know, we have this memory and this recall, and if we're not feeding our minds something different, more desirable, then it will literally start eating backwards. And whenever it eats backwards, it starts from pain to problem to perplexity, and it finds all of the traumatic areas to contend with. And so what we have to be ready to do emotionally and psychologically is manage it, manipulate it, suffocate it, suppress it, do whatever it takes for the moment. I think that's similar to what Sandra was just saying, right? You had to shift it, right? So that intentionally, I think all of these are intentional references. And so I think Corine is dealing more readily with it than she gives herself credit for. That's, I think, that's the reason for saying that.
Yeah.
I believe it's just that her choice of method.
Yes.
And this is what I want our audience to realize. Her choice of method is a sane or sanity approach for her that allows her to keep moving in her life based upon the way she contends with it otherwise. And so this is why it's very important tonight to redefine strategy, right? Sandra, you see what I'm saying here? So I don't think you think you all are doing anything different than Corine is doing. I just think that she calls it something that we kind of want to sometimes frown at and make it look or appear as if she's not going to advance if she doesn't change her method. But suppression is one of the methods we will use. There are some other experiences I've had in my life to realize her choice of method. I don't think you're doing, someone needs to mute their, yeah.
I don't think she suppresses as much as she thinks she does.
Right. This is what I'm saying. It's
Like,
just
that's what they feel like she's doing. And I think we all have felt that way at times.
Right.
Just find gratitude in our now. There's something about all that we're going through.
Say that again. I like that. Say that again.
Find gratitude in our now.
Gratitude.
All that we're going through, there's some gratitude in it because there's some good things that happen with those persons that I'm grateful for. And now I can reflect back on those things, remember them, and it still give me joy. So I'm finding gratitude in what I experienced with them in my now. I'm finding gratitude in the smile they used to offer up upon us and stuff like that. The things how they used to hold our hands, or how they might have touched our shoulder. How they might have just said Rosa or even mom at times. So just what I'm going through now, I'm finding gratitude in it. So there's so much that we can do to make ourselves move on in a better way. We're gonna always hurt. You know, there gonna always be some pain that come forth in our lives. Right now, we deal with loss because of the COVID-19. We suffering over that. There's grief in that area right now in our lives. The job situation, not being able to go out the house when we want to go out the house, not being able to fellowship in church when we want to, in the building. The church is in us, but in the building, we can't go all the time. So all these areas in our lives, we're still grieving, and we're dealing with those in a different way. So every type of grief we go through, it's going to be dealt with in a different way. But I'm learning how to find some gratitude. And now I'm grateful for the time that we've been home because I'm able to study the word more. So you see, and now I can study the word more because I'm home. Before I was complaining, I don't have enough time. I can't pray. I don't have enough time.
So are we saying then we do need to make sure that whatever we do does not allow us to allow the past experience to take us into depression?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
logically and emotionally, right? Is that what we're saying, ladies?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Yes.
I was just agreeing with you, because if we don't try to do something different, we most definitely will fall into that type of depression. So it's sometimes we get it right on point, sometimes we might miss it, when the different occasions come up where the grief may flare up. But if we can make grounds on being able to catch it when it first tried to take us on the depressed mode, then we can have that victory over it.
Now, stay right there, Sandra. I like what you said because you used the term flares up. Grief flares up.
Mhm.
Ladies, are we familiar with that? Corine,
Yes.
are there times when it just flares up?
It does, but when it does, and if I find myself, because I don't want to find myself crying over it or grieving over what happened. So once it come up, I will immediately shut down and say, okay, that's it. Okay, what can I do next? And when it comes, I totally cut it off because, the pain to me is too great and I just don't want to bear it. So, and then I remember you told me also that, I can't remember exactly how you told me, but because I play the piano, you was telling me that, go and play music. You was telling me those are one of the ways that probably can help me and assist me in getting through it, because you're never over it. You get through what you're going through. And that has helped. So I found some things that I can do immediately so I don't have to even think about, what happened. So that's why I say I kind of press it a little bit and put it under. Because and you're right as well when you said that I probably deal with it a lot better than I do. How? I don't know. I guess through prayer, through reading, through praying, whatever. Through my spiritual connection, my connection with the Lord. That's the only way I know that I'm dealing with it.
It came to my mind.
Wow.
Bad me a bit. I taught a class on death, grief, and caring down in Hampton, South Carolina area. Bunch of ministers and lay people. It's a 10 weeks class. And this young minister that was in this class, during the time of the class, he lost his father.
Wow.
And everybody kept telling him, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But in the class, I always taught, cry. Whatever you feel, let it out. If you want to kick somebody, don't do it, but kick the door. But we feel those emotions sometimes. You just want to kick, want to yell at something, do it. Don't hold it back. But because he was suppressing his tears, because everybody told you a minister, where's your faith? His faith was still there, just that he was hurting inside. That didn't kill his faith. And because of that, he wasn't crying. He wouldn't let go of his emotion. And he ended up having a nervous breakdown. And when I finally found out about it, he was in the hospital and I contacted him. And but by the time I reached him, he had gotten out. He said, only thing that saved him was something I kept telling him in the class, cry. He's a man. He kept saying, I know you guys are men, but cry. Let it out. You'll feel so much better. And it's not going to hurt you if you let it cry. Just cry. And I still do it once in a while. Certain things come to me, or certain ways that I think my mother, some things that she did, I find myself breaking down in tears. And she's been gone now 3 years. I'm sorry, but I don't try to suppress them. I let them out. I let them out. And when they're gone, I get them to start laughing. I said, Mom, you had your way again. Because she just brought tears to my eyes. You had your way again, Mom. You know how to do it, don't you? But we have to realize that when you're grieving, emotions come, all kinds, sadness, anger, you mad at the world, all this stuff come. Let it out. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Ain't nothing wrong with it. You got a right to feel that way. You're hiding.
Rosa, I used to actually encourage people to do several things to cope, depending upon the stage of grief they were in. we used to have what was called a rage room. I would say, go in the room and just, you know, now this is going to be pretty insensitive and probably misdirecting for some of you who are very polished in your and astute in your Christianity. But I said, you know, God understands the emotional pain that you're in. I said, you go in a room and lock up, and if curse words come out, just let them flow. I say, yelling and screaming, and Peter Sanders laughing. You know, Bishop about being listen, the Bible says, casting all of your cares upon him because he cares for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you got to understand about the emotional realm, I don't want to try to teach a lesson on emotions tonight, but one of the things you have to understand about how the psychology can drive emotions is like this. If you're overcautious to let out something that is like pumping air in a balloon, and the balloon has reached its capacity, and you're still pumping. Let me tell you something. If you're going to preserve that balloon, you better ease that little feeder open just a little so that some of the air can seep out, because otherwise that balloon won't be there long. It can only resist just a very small tolerance above its capacity to stand under. And that's why when you're dealing with the emotional realm, you have to notice what Jesus did, saints. He went into the garden when his emotions were catching up with the spirit of his purpose. I'll say it like that so you all will leave it there, and I won't have to be demanded to say anything else. When his emotions and his psychology, Sandra, was about to get the best of him, he goes to the garden called Gethsemane, place of planting, a place of reckoning, a place of reasoning. Now, he asked the disciples to stay a certain distance, but they fell asleep even in that. Notice he gets far enough away from them, understanding that they may not be able to conceptualize what he was going through the way he was facing it. You see that? Since they would not fully understand or comprehend, he left them a certain distance, Rosa, and when he got there, he let it go. Father, if you are willing, let this bitter cup be passed from me, he says. You see that, Corine? Notice he just lets it out. Now, if the modern day, here we go now, sensationalist, evangelist, theologian, or whatever, if they heard it, they would say, well, my God, if Jesus can't endure no better than that, what are we facing? I mean, how are we going to? But he goes far enough away to isolate between him and God. You see that?
Yes.
And he begins to just let out all of the emotional anguish and the turmoil. He was a God. He was, watch this, the Son of Man who was now anguishing purpose that he was here for. And he understood his capacity, Corine. And so he lets it go so he could preserve himself. And in the midst of being preserved, he after he releases that emotion, the trauma of it, Sandra, notice what he then says. Nevertheless, not my will,
but
but your will be done. In other words, sometimes we cannot see God's will because we have been too cautious and too preserving of our own. And we need to release it by expressing it.
Yes.
Great anguish and the pain that's inside of you, release it, let it go.
Yes.
Casting all of your cares upon him, for he cares, he's willing to carry it for you. Actually, this ties us right back to Matthew 11:28 and 29, when Jesus literally says, take my yoke upon you and learn. In other words, yoke with me and I will show you how to experimentally deal with the anguish that you are very unfamiliar with. And notice after that, he got up, he come on, dusted himself off, and there it is. Now he's ready to teach them life's lessons again. Peter, get up, boys. You need to get ready because the hour's coming. And now is when the Son of God is about to be betrayed into the hands of wicked. You know, he goes on to purpose. The reason why sometimes we cannot, God is not allowed in our lives to unveil purpose is because we are improperly enduring the problem.
I actually went to a funeral that was similar to that. Like the young cousin I told you committed suicide. He had a nephew that was his same age, and they were really close together. And during the time he committed suicide, he was going through something. And this nephew had told him, I tell you, we can make it together. We can do it together. We can work through anything together. And he wouldn't go inside where the funeral was being held at. He kept staying outside, just walking the street, mad as he could be. And finally, I told him, go inside, stand in front of the casket, and tell your uncle how you feel. And he went inside. He let go. He said how mad he was at him. I told you, we're going to do it together. We're going to get through this mess together. You say you didn't do it. I believe you. And we're going to get through it together. He just went off talking to him about it in the casket. And after doing that for about 5 minutes, he finally broke down and just started wailing like a baby. And once that was over, he got up, turned around, walked out. Said, I feel so much better. But he had to let it out. He was so angry with his uncle that he didn't know what to do, how to react. He just was mad. And that seemed like how brought a great release to him. Just exploding, letting everything go. And it's amazing how sometimes we think we're doing ourselves justice by keeping everything bottled in. We're really hurting ourselves and either others around us that are watching how we deal with the grief. Because they need to know it's okay also for them to cry. And if we're not releasing our pain and anguish, they hold back sometimes too, because I don't want to offend them. I don't make them even sadder than they are already. So I'm not going to cry. I'm going to hold it back as long as I can. And we do that sometimes.
Now, ladies, see now Rosa, you're saying so much. That is so awesome. One of the things we're going to deal with in the next session is the impact our grief may be having on those connected to us. Sometimes just understanding the broadness of our plight helps us to realize what strategies are necessary for coping so that we're not isolated to the point where we're literally making others' pain more difficult than it has to be as well, who may be grieving with us. Is that clear? Sandra,
yes, I like to say I'm glad you and Sister Rosa brought those points up, because also often we have family members or loved ones tell a grieving person, oh, you got to be strong.
Yeah.
So they have that mindset, oh, I can't cry. And that's when I almost lost my mind, because I had that concept, oh, I can't cry. That was a sign of weakness. And a lot of time, and when people say be strong, I'm almost sure that's how they think. I can't show no weakness. I gotta be strong. But when people misguide them, when they say be strong, instead of encourage them to let God be their strength, because within our own strength, we're gonna fail. So we need the strength of God to carry us through, because he said in our weakness, he will be our strength. Right. But so often people say, be strong, be strong. And so people be literally losing their mind because they're trying to be strong, because they feel like they can't cry, they can't release it. And that's a sign of weakness. And I went months thinking, oh, I can't cry. And then if I shared a tear, I wouldn't let no one see me cry. I always had to look like a peer that I was strong, but I was literally about to lose my mind.
I know.
You remind me of a situation when I was a young minister, Rosa, in the early part of my pastorate. I was in a situation because I was always at the hospital, the nursing homes, et cetera, senior care, every week, 3-4 days a week. Sometimes I was somewhere between prison, whatever. Now, there was a young man who lost both his wife and his child at the same time in a car accident.
Mm.
And the problem was when I got there, they had already sedated him because they thought he was borderline, threatening a stroke or a heart attack himself. So I stayed in the room with this guy and I prayed for him, waited until he kind of come out from under some of the sedation. And I talked with him. I found out it was about 4 or 5 days after the actual event. I didn't know him prior to this. It was an encounter from evangelism and outreach. Well, sitting there, he said to me, none of the things that you have said to me while you were holding me was said to me prior to today. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, everybody told me I had to be strong. Everybody told me that God wouldn't let this happen to me if I wasn't strong enough to handle it. And he expected me to stand up and be a man and face this like a man. And it don't take all that crying, and it don't, just go ahead. And since they're gone. And he said, he called me at that time. He said, Pastor Bush, he said, and I tried. And he said, for the first couple of nights, I kept telling myself, this is too much. But I kept holding it in, and I refused to just let myself cry. I said to him, I said, young man, what do you mean you refuse to let yourself cry? Who told you? He said, well, I felt like the pressure they were putting on me suggested I couldn't cry. I couldn't relieve myself, that I was just weak. And I sat there with him. I said, listen, let me tell you something. I said, I want you to do this for me. I said, I want you to take your head, put it right here. He said, rest. I said, put it right here. Put it right there. Nurse walks in the room. I said, I got him. He's okay. He's laying, his grown man, got his head on my shoulder. Nothing funny. I'm just holding him right there, just rubbing his shoulder. And as I'm holding him, he just begins to cry. And he weeps and he cries and he weeps and he cries and he weeps and he cries. And finally, they're doing his vitals and checking him. And about maybe an hour or so, hour and a half afterwards, the nurse comes in and says, all of a sudden, seemingly, all of your vitals are settling down. You're becoming more, you don't need any more of the medication. She said, what are you doing? What's happening? And he said, well, I don't know. I do feel a little different. And after she walked out of the room, he said, I guess you're right. I just needed the relief. I said, listen, young man, never again let someone on the outside of you diagnose you about your inside when they don't know how much weight and pain you're internalizing. I said, if they make light of something heavy, then you need to learn how to get rid of it, how to shed it, because not based on what they say, because if you don't relieve yourself, you're not going to be here for yourself.
Yes.
Oh, he cried about a day, next day or so when they released him from the hospital. He called me up. He said, man, I just need to be where you are, because it's almost as if whatever it is you're saying to me is keeping me sane. But it's more than anything else, Sandra, he said, it's letting me relieve myself without feeling like, you see this, I'm sinning. I mean, this guy was interpreting this thing as a sin. So he had his religious philosophy that was working against him. He had his friendships that was working against him. He had his theology that was working. You see that? All of these things that were working against him. And this man was about to carry himself to an early grave because he had no one to just simply say, man to man, relieve yourself. I remember on one occasion, I was telling him while I was rubbing his shoulder, I said, let me tell you something, man. I cry about things that that hurt me right now. You think I'm gonna be ashamed? I'm a man. He said, you know what? He said, I've always seen, a guy like you as a man's man. He said, you cry. I said, man, let me tell you something. I said, look at me right now. I'm almost about to out-cry you. I said, it's not really my pain like it's your pain. I said, but I'm empathizing with you. And if I can cry about it, you can too.
Yeah.
Just simply allowing him the the freedom to release himself,
Yes.
him
I
back
think-
in the comfort of safety. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Corine.
No, well, I was just gonna say, as you were saying, Minister Sandra was talking, and when I went to my father's home going, and I mean, I was torn apart, and a family member told me, "No, don't cry. That's what they want you. They want you to do that. They want you
They
to."
who?
That's what they told me. I'll tell you later. But yeah. But yeah, they told me that. They said, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I went to the car and I had to cry right there in the car. My husband took me to the car and we sat out there and I just cried and I just released it. But the other thing I want to say, I think that, and I believe, and I know for a fact that releasing it is good for you because, and I shared it with you one time and you may or may not remember, but of course, you know, my son was in the military and I have a cabinet in there in our living room dedicated to him, his accomplishments and different things like that, pictures and, you know, right there on the side. So, and I shared with you that my husband, he moved it from that cabinet to another one. And I was asking him, who told you to touch that? Who told you to move it? And I went totally ballistic on him because he actually touched his belongings and it hadn't been touched. I think he did that last year. He may have done it the year before last. And it hadn't even been touched since 2016. And I'm like, I know you did not touch that. And I totally lost it. So probably, and closer back then, I think dealing with it and crying and letting it go probably would have probably not, because I don't know, but maybe would have relieved some of that anger that I had inside of me just because he touched pictures and hats and flags and other things.
And you know, I remember it well because I wrote about it, Corine. I just want to tell you that now. It's about a year and it's been over. It was a year before last.
Yeah.
Now let me say this also. You remember I shared with you, I said, you see, that was his way of letting you see that he's connected as well. You're not grieving alone. And you got to let him have that experience as well. She had made it such a sacred, you know, we'll leave it at that, but it was almost as if even his father could not be as sentimentally connected to it as she was.
They don't deal with grief in the same way though. I mean, and you know, he puts his stuff in his work and I can work, but still, I mean, it's just different. To me, deal with grief differently than women.
Very important point. No one grieve in the same way.
Yeah.
No one. I like what she's saying. What always got me was always throw at you, time heals everything. That's a lie.
Time heals all wounds.
Oh boy, that is wow.
It'll never go away.
Yeah.
Rosa,
thank you so much. That is a secret now. We need to feel that one because again, that you are so right. Time don't heal everything.
No, I'm not sure time heal anything really. But they always throw that at us, no.
Yeah.
And, but that's one thing we need to learn the right things to say. They could have said, no, I know you feel like this pain gonna never go away, which is true. That's how we feel. The pain gonna never leave us. Don't throw at us time heal everything. And like you said, try not to cry. Cry as much you want to cry. I might start crying with you. Like Bishop said, I may be there crying with you.
Oh yeah.
But I sense with Corine, she want answers to what happened. And those answers not gonna ever come to you.
Yeah.
They're not gonna ever come. So you need to push past expecting to get answered by what happened to your family, but they're not gonna happen. And you really don't need those answers. You just need to focus on what you had with them. And you need me to love you a little bit more. And I'm gonna do that. That's what we need, each other to love each other more. Especially when you're going through stuff like this. Sometimes we need to love forever. Just extra care until we leave this world ourselves. We just need it. Because some people, the pain is so internal.
Yeah.
Once in a while, I just need to touch you and not say anything, but just to touch you gently to let you know I'm here. And you can recognize or feel the love that coming from me to your presence. We just got to do more of that. I mean, grief doesn't go away overnight. And we as a church body, when they go into the grave, we forget about the pain. And that's how we are. When the person is buried and we forget about the person that's still left behind. They still need our presence. They still need to know that we care. They still need it for us to come to the house once in a while. Just bring a breakfast or something. Bring some cupcakes or donuts. Just say, I'm thinking about you. To lift their spirits up and let them know that even though this has happened, someone still loves me. And until we can get to a point where we can do more of that, people are gonna keep on hurting more than we want them to hurt. Because it's like I lost one loved one, but no one replaces it. And no one really cared but me. And it's sad. I say these things because I have experienced these things, and I look at the church. What about me? You know, you come, you minister to everybody that I'm caring for in my house. Now you gone, but I'm still here hurting because I still got to deal with the person I'm caring for. So the church need to look at both sides, not just the loss, but also the person that's been left behind, and realize they still need some caring, they still need loving, they still need somebody to wrap their arms around them once in a while, just to let them know, you okay, honey. You cry all you want to cry. I ain't mad if you're mad. And we could do more of that. We could help heal so many other people emotionally and mentally, because that's what it's an emotional battle that we constantly going through. We just need to have it. I'm stopping now. I'm stopping. I'll be crying in a few minutes.
Sandra, you want to say anything else?
No, sir, I don't have nothing else. Nothing
So
else.
now
to
you're out of
say.
town. You're out of town.
I am.
Okay, we'll be praying for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We love you, and I support you, ladies. Corine,
Mm.
Sister Jane, tell you, yeah, it works you up. I went. See, now when I went to talk about the young man, Corine, I went all the way back, and I got in the hospital room with him again.
Oh yeah.
And one thing about me as a young man in my teen years and the early 20s, man, I'm telling you, I carried so much grief. God had to give me wisdom and sorrow, how to not enter into everybody's situation with a burden, a need to assist beyond me. And I really had to learn a lot because I'm an empathic person. And when you have that gift, you start experiencing what other people experience, to the point where you can tell them the pain that they're in because it's so readily identified with. You meet it face to face. And I'm telling you, that's why even today I'm still in ministry. You learn as a pastor, when you really love the people and you become their priest, you share their pain. It's not just a sentimental passing. It's not a sympathetic moment, whether they're in car accidents or whether they're at loss, or whether the loved one, someone just breaks up the marriage, or the parents leave the children. Whatever happens, you carry that grief, you carry that pain. And you're always wanting to find an avenue of relief for those people. And so, I think for us to talk tonight and to allow ourselves to converse is a source of relief for some who are listening tonight. And I pray that through this COVID season, this COVID-19 season, that some of us will realize that there's life after grief and loss. And Christ has given us, through grace, the ability to endure and overcome triumphantly in spite of what we continue to face. Now, does any of you ladies have anything you'd like to say in closing tonight?
I just want to share when, life after grief, it's like we have to learn how to write a new chapter, set new goals, create new legacy. I cannot say it correctly, but we gotta create something new for the ones, our children, that is coming behind us. We can't, continue down the same rut. We have to do something different in order to have something different.
Wow.
Good. I want to say practice gratitude. Even though we're hurting and suffering right now, find something in the world that you can be grateful for. Because there's always something else out there that overcomes the pain that you're going through. So I'm just going to say practice gratitude. Thank God for what He is giving us now.
And I just, in my closing, I want to say, because grief is not a one size fits all, I just want to say to the people listening that one day at a time is what I try to, tell myself, and I think that it may help others as well to take one day at a time, and not because you see someone else, they doing well, had a similar tragedy, you think you should be there, but that's not the reality of it. You take your time in your own time, and even though some people, which I've had told me as well, you should be over it by now, but that's, don't pay the naysayers of people, the ignorant comments of people any attention. You continue to pray about it and do you one day at a time, and you will get through it. I know I will as well, every day, a little bit by a little bit.
Beautiful. Ladies, we're going to pray tonight, just a simple prayer. I like what Corine just said, one day at a time. A very simple prayer. I want you to repeat after me, please. It's very simple. I pray this prayer daily. It helps me to remember that God has graced me by design to overcome what I face being me through Christ. And it also helps me to shift to a perspective of acceptance and not denial, so that whatever I face, I realize it's something I have the power to deal with, or through Him, I have to rely on His power to deal with. And so tonight is the prayer of serenity. Since we're praying, and just say this with me, Lord,
Lord,
we embrace you through Jesus Christ,
We embrace
Great.
you through Jesus.
our Savior tonight.
I'll save you tonight.
And we solicit grace,
We
And we
solicit grace,
Grace,
overcome
overcome
the multitude of our challenges.
a multitude of
multitude.
our challenges.
Therefore, we ask
Therefore, we ask
for serenity
for
for
serenity
to accept the things in our life
to accept the things in our
our
life
that we cannot change.
and
that
we cannot change.
We ask you for courage
We ask
ask
you for courage
to change the things that we can change.
to change the
change.
things that we can change.
Most of all, Lord,
Most
Most
of
of
all,
all,
Lord,
we pray for wisdom
we pray for your
for wisdom.
wisdom
to know the difference.
to know the
know the
difference.
One day
One day
at a time,
at a
At-
time,
we will overcome
we will
will
overcome
by the blood of the Lamb
by the blood of the Lamb
and the words
and the words
of our testimony.
as our testimony.
In His name,
In Jesus' name,
amen.
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 But ladies, I really appreciate you all so much. I want to just now encourage you, give them your numbers before we close, and let them know, let our listening audience know how they can reach you. I know that some people have already begun reaching out to you all, and you've been assisting some. So give them your numbers, please, and make sure they have the necessary contact information so that they can find the relief that we're discussing tonight.
My number is 706-524-6833.
And mine is 803-640-7193.
803-295-7174.
And Crown Kingdom Cultural Center number is 803-278-1312. Again, that's 803-278-1312. If you have any difficulty reaching any of those numbers, you can type a message on our Facebook page here, live Facebook page. Put it in the comment section, and someone will see it and respond to you appropriately. Also, you can go on our web page. That's www.fbjm.org. And there you can place a comment or let us know what it is that you need assistance with. But just know, most assuredly, regardless of whether you reach out to us or not, we will be praying for you. God
Amen.
bless you. We love you all sincerely, and we expect nothing but graceful favor to fall out in your life, regardless to what happens from this day forward. We decree it in Jesus' name. Thank you, ladies. You all have a blessed night in Jesus'